Monica.
Hi, Monica.
Hi there. Let's see.
Hi. It's Chris Steele here. I'm just gathering all my colored pens so I can play.
Hello.
Hi, Andrea. My God,
Yeah.
like in the Grand Canyon.
I used to live there.
Did you really?
Not in the Grand Canyon, in the place where this was taken.
It's like
So where is
I
that?
actually lived in the canyon, but you know.
It's in Israel in the Negev desert.
Oh.
And it's basically half an hour out of my back door was this place. We used to go there a lot.
Wow, it looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Hey, George.
I know George is here.
Not hearing us. I thought I saw Rachel for a sec.
Yeah, I see her name, but I don't think she's on video.
Yeah, I'm here.
Minutes when you have a moment to deal with them.
Yes, I'm sorry. I got the website up to date.
Yep.
So
We have a new report from George, the head of Housing and Neighborhoods, that we'd like posted to continue to get those monthly meeting things posted. So I can send it along to you.
yeah, that's fine.
Monica, you going to talk about all the work that the website has undergone since the last meeting?
I will mention it.
Okay.
Yep. In fact, let me add that to my list of notes.
Better.
I've gotten 2 emails as a result of those posters that Marlene has been posting all over about the empty seats.
Oh, really? That's good. Hey, so since the 3 of you, so hopefully that email I sent to you all wasn't too pushy, or to Leah and to Carolyn, just asking if they were going to run or not.
I didn't see that.
No, I don't think it was too pushy at all.
Okay.
I didn't see an email like that, David.
I sent it to your ANC address.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she never checks that.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's just, you know, nobody respects me. Just kidding.
Yeah, but it would be good to have an answer.
Yes.
And at the moment, we only have, I guess,
Ooh, G. George, I see you, and then there's the G below you. That's like the Michigan State Spartans colors.
Oh yeah.
So you're like in stereo, right? You're sort of visual you, and then there's the. Do that.
I got you on the phone and on the screen.
I know. It's like, what did I do what did we do to deserve such a present?
It's me. I can't figure the goddamn thing out.
George, remember, this remains the family channel. Watch your language.
Okay.
And there's feedback, George, when you do this.
I know. All
George.
right. I'll just stick with the phone.
No, you can stick with video. I'll mute your phone for now.
You know, if you mute the phone, I won't hear you.
No, if I mute your phone, you should be able to hear us, but and then just raise your hand and when you want to speak. And I'll unmute.
Okay,
Okay?
yep.
Okay.
Excellent. Now,
No, wait a second.
Wrong one.
No, he's muted there, so
Now he's muted. Hey, Naomi.
Hey, Andrea. Hi, Monica. David.
it's because I think it's because well, I'm not gonna worry about it.
Leah. Hey, Leah.
Hey Leah. Okay.
You're muted.
Okay, so let's see. So let's get the show rolling. 7:32, and let's just call the meeting to order. July meeting of ANC 3F. So welcome everyone, and we've got 5 commissioners on, so we have a quorum. Yay! So welcome. Start with the roll call. I think it's probably easier. Well, I'll just go down the line. David?
Here.
And you
All right.
introduce yourself.
Oh, David Steele. I'm sorry. I'm a little slow tonight. David Steele, ANC Commissioner 3F01, present.
Andrea?
Andrea Molad, 3F05, Commission Secretary.
Naomi?
Naomi Ruttenberg, ANC 3F03, Treasurer.
Leah?
Hi, Leah Freelingeisen, ANC 3F04 Commissioner.
And I'm Monica Nemeth, 3F06 and Chair of ANC 3F. So welcome everyone. And the first order of business after this is approval of the agenda. So any questions, comments on tonight's agenda from folks?
Yeah. Modification, I'm suggesting a modification, the removal of the consent agenda. We have no minutes to approve.
Okay. Easy enough. Any other changes? Okay. I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move
Okay.
to approve the agenda.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great. The agenda is approved. Thank you. And next we'll go to commissioner updates and announcements. So I'll just go down the line again. David?
I've been tracking the construction of the Hearst Park, and I know that's, I think the sign, those of you that see the sign either on Idaho or 36th Street says that that's supposed to be completed in 2020, and that's not going to happen. So I'm actually kind of emailing with Mary Che's office and some other folks to get an update on that pretty soon. A bit of a tangent, you know, the district I have, 3F01, is the home of 17 embassies. And on Sunday afternoon, there was an interesting event, a protest in front of the Chinese embassy from a group from Tibet, you know, wanting Tibet to be free. So it was kind of interesting to see that on a hot, sunny day. And that's it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And Andrea?
Yeah.
Any announcements?
Yeah, I do. The ongoing issue of the Essex condominium and all of the noise has been escalating. Got this wonderful email finally from Councilmember Che, basically telling DCRA to get off there and just do the abatement and then go charge the condominium. I had a very disappointing conversation today with the head of enforcement at DCRA, Pamela, I can't remember her last name, who basically told me that they are powerless, that they can't do, they're not gonna just do abatement. They're in plans with the Essex. There's another 21-day timetable that may or may not start next week. Timetables come and go. It's outrageous. They are looking to stall until they can turn it off again, which is what they did last year. And that is what will happen. So we're gonna see this with some new commissioner again next year, because there is nothing that DCRA is willing to do, despite a very direct and clear email from Councilmember Che telling them to just do it. So just an update on what's going on there. This is affecting, the Essex condominium is in my SMD. It's affecting people in my SMD and in Monica's.
Yeah.
The complaints are endless. The noise level is unbelievable. If anybody ever goes out back there, you ever go up there, Monica? The noise, it sounds like a plane is landing. People
Yeah.
have to shout at each other on their porch. Kids not sleeping, you know, it's a long saga and they just won't do anything about it. I got a promise from them today to do more enforcement, whatever that means. That may mean going out there once a week instead of just once a summer to give a notice of intent. But apparently the notice of intent that was filed last summer is now still awaiting enforcement. So they haven't even paid the fine from last June. So there's very little end to this.
Okay.
So that's my
Thank
side.
you. I can't say that I'm surprised, but it's very disappointing.
It's outrageous because it's making that neighborhood unlivable for anybody.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Naomi?
I have no announcements.
Okay. Leah?
I have no announcements.
Okay, so I have a few things that I want to mention. First and foremost, more of a personal point. As it were, in the last week or so in this country, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that you know, the death of C.T. Vivian and Representative John Lewis, truly we lost two magnificent individuals, and we owe them so much. All of us owe them so much for what they have done. I'm not even sure how many giants are left from that generation anymore. But I just want to just take a moment to recognize the fact that we truly have seeing the passing of a generation that to whom we really owe so much, all of us, regardless of who you are. And I just want to acknowledge that. And so back to ANC business. Days Inn is back to normal operations, no longer a COVID site. We've been making a number of updates to our ANC 3F website, and anyone who goes out there, I think, will be pleased with a number of the changes. There's still more work to be done, by all means. We're not complete with it, but I think everyone will be rather pleased by the amount of work that's been done, the amount of updates, and it's definitely an improvement. You'll notice tonight we are using Zoom for the first time. We're trying this out. You know, this district government uses WebEx, Citrix WebEx, and yesterday we had a meeting the Housing Committee, which I'm sure George Hoffman or folks from the Housing Committee will talk about during our Housing Committee report with Mary Che, and that was done via WebEx. And so we're trying this out because I also know DC government, a lot of folks and a lot of ANCs are using Zoom, and we've been hearing from people saying, hey, well, can we try out Zoom as well? So we're trying it. And let us know what you think when this is all said and done and see how this works out. Because given the way things are going these days, we're going to be doing virtual meetings for quite some time, it seems. And then finally, it's election season. So we're in the midst of collecting signatures for our petitions for those of us who are running for re-election. And I've already filed my paperwork with the Board of Elections. I believe David has as well, though I have not finished collecting my signatures. You only need 10. And I've, because of social distancing and such, I have not gone out and collected the full 10 at this point, but I have 5. The deadline is August 5th, so 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we got to make sure we get those in. And yes, thunder and lightning. I hear that as well. And it's actually raining for once. Good. I had an appointment in Bethesda yesterday. And it was pouring rain in Bethesda. It did not rain here. It was like less than 3 miles away. I was very disappointed by the fact that we had no rain at my home. But anyway, I encourage folks to run. You've got 2 weeks to file the paperwork and get your signatures in. Please, anyone who's interested, if you have questions about being in commission or questions about the process, reach out to any one of us. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. And that is all that I have with respect to announcements. So let's go start with committee reports. And I don't think Parks and Trails has anything right now because I know there hasn't been, we have a break in August when we don't have an ANC meeting. I will make sure that Parks and Trails gets the care that it needs, and let's get things rolling there. But streets and sidewalks? I think I saw you here, Bob.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So we did meet in July. The main 2 topics on our agenda were to talk about the DC DDOT Slow Streets Initiative. Soon after our meeting, DDOT asked for input on some of the proposed slow streets in our ANC, and we got comments from committee members and coordinated that through the commissioners who I think Monica as the chair eventually filed the comments on the slow streets. We haven't gotten any final word from DDOT on what those will be, although we do know that 36th Street from Reno to Connecticut is there first, and we'll see what comes next. And then the only other thing to report is really what comes later in this meeting, which is there's an ongoing study on Connecticut Avenue and issues related to Connecticut Avenue. And our ANC has been involved, as you will see soon. So we're glad to take any questions. That's my report.
Actually, I do have a question or a comment.
Yeah.
It's more actually to David Christille. David, you were going to get back to me with a decision on the Rodman Street, Idaho Ave, because we noticed that kind of got left off the original letter, since that was actually the border between us and 3C, and I decided what.
So yeah, if this is the time, I guess the answer is, I went online to the ANC 3C last night, and they had this on their agenda, although I don't believe they took formal action. They had one question, which I think is, I didn't know that part of Idaho. There's part of Idaho by the police station. And there's also part of Idaho where they're doing the construction along the park. And so there's just a concern about that part of Idaho during the construction period, how would that be treated? But I think other than that, Rodman's supported, and I know I've got neighbors that I've talked to that think that's, given the other streets that aren't slow streets, that Rodman's a great location. Those of you that know that street, the northern part of Rodman is on the park, or on a park, and so I guess we'd like to have that added.
Okay, so because I noticed that Denise Jackson from DDOT is here, so Denise, I would like to file an amended letter or a revised letter, if that's okay. I know the deadline was last week, but if you have no objections, I'm going to quickly get you a revised letter tomorrow, adding Rodman and Idaho.
And with
Yes, that should be fine. I'm still collecting comments. I know we gave a deadline, but we haven't had any internal briefings yet, so I still have a chance to add that to my list and then bring it up for a discussion with our team.
Great, thank you. Yes, David.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just with that footnote about the Idaho part of that, just that there is the construction going on, and that's construction is probably going to practically be going on for another year. Take that into consideration when when you're looking at how to implement that slow street part of Idaho.
Yeah, and I can call that in the letter as well. We can wordsmith that. We can couple of sentences. So okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And was that Bob, or any other questions for streets and sidewalks? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Housing. Let me.
Okay.
Neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Do we want to be known as housing and neighborhoods or just housing? I think you're going to have to decide.
Housing and neighborhoods.
Housing and neighborhoods.
Okay, so can you list it, please, that way? On the
Yes.
agenda? Monica?
Yes, I will make sure it's always referenced.
Right. Okay, we met on July 6th. Is this reverberating?
Hold on one second. Let me meet one of you.
Okay,
Keep going.
better?
Well, it's still a bit, but
We'll deal with it.
we'll deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we met on July 6th. We discussed, oh, this is intolerable. I
Move
can't,
your phone. Move your phone away and just speak to your computer.
okay, how's that? Better? Now I'm turning the phone off.
Turn the phone off. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now? No.
Is your phone
How's
off?
now? Now?
Yeah.
Is the phone on or off?
No?
We
yes,
hear you,
yes,
George.
No.
yes.
Yes?
We
Okay.
hear you.
We reviewed recent budget developments in the city council, which were affecting emergency rental assistance and the support for middle income emergency rental assistance. We also discussed the possibility of asking for extending rent control, which didn't resonate with us. And we discussed a
George, we lost you.
He's back.
attended. We discussed affordable housing with her, looking ahead to hopefully a Ward 3 wide discussion about affordable housing. And we also brought up, hopefully, some support from her office for a task force to look into how the voucher program is actually working in our neighborhood. We think an assessment has to be done, and either in the mayor's office or in the council, there should be hopefully a task force created to see how things are going. We don't think things are going well, but that's just our anecdotal opinion. So we know that there are other groups in Ward 3, Ward 3 Vision, and I've been in touch with other ANCs. There is support for a Ward 3 wide meeting coming together in some way on affordable housing, and that no doubt will be something we'll have to be talking and reporting to you on in September. That's it.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Okay. And then finally, anything out of grants?
We still have this issue of the outstanding grant. You can't hear me, George? Can you not hear me? Can you nod your head? I guess he can't hear me.
I guess when he turned off the phone, he lost his, maybe his computer doesn't have a speaker. Anyway,
I can't hear.
yeah. Thank you for typing that in there, Andrea. You pressed it on iOS.
There's nothing
Anyway,
big
grant?
in what I'm going to say. We still have this issue of the grant to the group that is giving out the food.
Mm-hmm.
ANC 3D gave them a grant, but as far as I understand, they're not a nonprofit. The bank account there's no bank account in the name of the organization. And so we voted on the grant contingent on them sending us the application, which they did. But the idea would be that we would have to write them a check addressed and make out a check to one of the people in the group. Can we do that? 3D apparently did. I didn't think we could do that. I think that they're going to get called on this. Naomi,
Why
do
don't
you
we
know if we
check
can do
with Gottlieb's office?
Yeah, I would check with Gottlieb and
I
Yeah,
think we have, I'm trying to remember if we have made out checks to individuals who are treasurers of an organization. We need to check
because that
with
afterward, we
Gottlieb.
get
I'm not
checks.
sure that's a deal breaker. I mean, if it goes to one of them and then they provide the appropriate documentation that they use the money for the purpose of the grant.
Because like for like when we did for like Wilson for like T-shirts or something like that. I mean, did they have? I mean, that like some sort of parent group or some student group. They didn't have the whole nonprofit stuff.
They did. They did. It's the boosters, and we made it out to the boosters. They're not called that, but
I get what you're saying. Okay.
okay,
Yeah,
Naomi, if you're so inclined, then I'll get you the name of the woman to send the check to and the address.
All right, I'll call Gottlieb's office and see if I can get some counsel from them as well before I do that.
Okay, that's it for grants.
Okay. Thank you. And next up, community forum. I know in the
Streets
chat
and
room I
sidewalks?
had,
Not streets, parks and trails?
we did parks and trails. We kind of skipped over them because there wasn't anything I thought. I don't think. They were the first.
Who gave the report? How did I miss that?
There wasn't a report to give. They hadn't met. I was addressed the fact that while we may not be meeting as a ANC in August, we're going to have to. I was making sure we'll get Parks and Trails will get some TLC and we'll get things really going there again.
Okay.
Okay, so for community, I know Stephen, let me get the last name again from the OPC, Stephen Marincic. Did I pronounce that right, Stephen?
It's close enough. It's like forensic with an M.
Marincic.
That's close enough. How is everybody doing this evening? Glad
Good,
to see
thank
you
you.
all.
And let me, before we go in there, let me find out if there's anybody else who, so we got Stephen from OPC. Do we have anybody else who wants to speak at the community forum this evening? Okay, well, the floor is all yours. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I'm with the Office of the People's Counsel. For anyone who's not familiar with our agency, that's okay. I won't hold it against you. We are your consumer advocate for utility issues. So if you're having problems with your electric, natural gas, landline phone service, or DC water now as of last year, we just celebrated our year anniversary, you can call my agency. We are DC government, and we would help you resolve any sort of complaints that you might have. So there's just a few updates that have been going on since the COVID emergency declaration was declared. One of the biggest things is that utilities are not allowed to disconnect service, especially for payment issues. So if you have any consumers in your constituency that might be having issues making payments, please have them reach out to our agency. I've put our contact information in the chat. You can always reach out to me directly. I represent wards 3 and 4 specifically, so you might see me floating around different ANC meetings. So if you have any issues with your utilities, please reach out to us. We are aware, especially it's kind of fortuitous that it's pouring down rain right now. So service issues are always a big problem in July when it's super hot and there are really powerful storms. If you're having frequent power outages or anything like that, please reach out to us. That's something we can light a fire under the utilities to come out and check. We won't literally light a fire under the gas utility for obvious reasons. But if you have any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. Our phone number is 202-727-3071. We're on Twitter. My handle is right there at DCOPC. You can find us on the web at opc-dc.gov. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll leave you to your meeting.
Yeah, I have a question at some point. Steve, can you talk to us about that big fine that Exelon just paid for bribery?
I'm not specifically familiar with that. Off the record, that would not surprise me. But I would be happy to have one of our attorneys from my office present at a next meeting regarding that, because we do have different divisions. I'm in the consumer outreach, and I specifically deal with consumer complaints. But big picture attorneys, I'd be more than happy to have one of my attorneys reach out to you directly or come in and present it for them.
Yeah, there's a big town hall going on tonight about this, unfortunately conflicting with this meeting, otherwise I would be there. But okay, it would be nice to hear more about this.
Yeah, I could put together a fact sheet for you as well, and I'd be happy to send it to the commission.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, have a nice evening, everybody.
Okay, and I'm back. I
Thank
dropped
you.
momentarily. Apparently my, thanks. Okay, so I keep getting a connection unstable message, so I don't know. Can you all hear me, or am I about to get cut off?
Back. You moved to the middle, but otherwise you're there.
Okay. So, yeah, okay, things seem to be stable right now, but we'll see. I don't know. So next up, we're going to have then the community and DDOT, and I think Ed Stoloff, you're told by Charlotte you're going to be presenting.
Yeah, I just turned my video on.
And I think you have a presentation that you should be able to share. If not, I can maybe make you, let me see.
Well, I can try to put it up if you'd like.
That would be nice, because
Let's see. Oh, host has disabled participant screen sharing.
okay, hold on. I will make you a host. Now, I don't know, let's see what happens when now, let's see what happens when you try to share.
Let's try this. How's that?
Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Great.
Wait, you just put it
Okay.
on. Good.
Should we start?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ed Stoloff, and I am the project manager at DDOT for the Connecticut Avenue Reversible Lane Operations and Safety Study. With me tonight is Cynthia Lynn, and Cynthia is the deputy project manager, and Sabrina Ham is from Community, and she'll be helping to take some notes for us as we go along. If our connections get unstable, it's happened before. Cynthia will take over and she'll share her screen. So we're going to tag team this presentation this evening. We'll take about 15 minutes and we'll then open it up to questions if that's okay with the the chair.
Ed, just one interruption. Would you mind sending us your slides after tonight's meeting?
Oh, I got them, Andrea. I think
Yes, Charlotte sent them.
Yeah, so we'll get them
Yes,
out.
I know where they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go with the next slide, and that's really introducing the presentation tonight. We'll give you the study purpose. We'll give you a little bit of background about the project. We'll give you a status report in terms of where we are in the study process. Cynthia will talk about the existing conditions report and the existing conditions analysis that we've done. I'll jump back on and talk about some of the concept alternatives that we have developed to date. And then we can open it up to discussion. So the purpose of the study is really threefold. One, to improve safety for all modes, to consider a protected bicycle lane, and to look at the feasibility of either removing, maintaining, or improving the reversible lane operation. And again, this is done in conjunction with our Vision Zero initiative. As far as the project background, there's been a number of studies as far back as 17 years ago. The latest in 2018, we had 3 ANC resolutions. ANC 3F provided a resolution in support of our study on March 20th, 2018. And there was substantial community involvement basically in helping to shape the request for qualifications to do this current study. In 2016, there was a bicycle analysis for Cleveland Park that looked at some protected bicycle alternatives. In 2015, There was a corridor crosswalk safety project for ANC 34G, and that was done by George Branyan in the Active Transportation Branch in our office at DDOT. And in 2014, Connecticut Avenue shows a protected bicycle lane in our Move DC. Move DC is our long-range transportation plan that guides the future of facilities within the district. And I'll go to the next slide. You can see some photos here. There was the CAPA study, the Connecticut Avenue Pedestrian Action Study, pedestrian safety audit done by Tool Design Group in February 2011. And I know the community was instrumental in participating in that study and taking pedestrian counts and coming up with recommendations as well. In 2011, the Institute of Transportation Engineers did a study of reversible lane operations for the Washington, D.C. area. Connecticut Avenue was cited in that report as well. And then as far back as 2003, there was a traffic operations study along Connecticut Avenue in the Cleveland Park area that had many recommendations, including pedestrian improvements. And they looked at the reversible lane just a little bit, suggested some signage improvements. But the study that we're doing really is the first, I would say, comprehensive study of the entire length of Connecticut Avenue. As you'll see, the study limits as we show the next map from Legation Street Northwest to Calvert Street Northwest. It's about 2.7 miles. And within that primary study area corridor, we're looking at 25 signalized intersections, basically to see the extent of impacts to the operations for all modes along Connecticut Avenue. The secondary study area really it goes from Wisconsin Avenue to the west, Broad Branch Road to the east, DuPont Circle to the south, and Western Avenue to the north. And the secondary study area will help us look at traffic impacts, diversion impacts, if we happen to implement one of the build recommendations. So, you know, we want to see if we change the geometry, if we change the operations to Connecticut Avenue, what effect would that have in some of the roadways in the secondary study area. Cynthia's going to start from here.
Great, thanks, Ed. So essentially, this is the life cycle of the project. Over the last several months, we've spent time both collecting data and analyzing some of the existing conditions, which we'll be talking about tonight. We're at a pretty critical juncture at this point in our study where we've started identifying some initial concepts and beginning to hopefully move toward a viable set of alternatives later this summer with input from the community. Essentially, our next step would be to model some of these viable alternatives and choose a preferred alternative before moving toward 10% design. Next slide, please.
All right.
So essentially, over the duration of the project, we really have engaged a number of internal and external stakeholders through a community advisory committee, which we'll talk about a little bit more. We've also presented at a number of ANC meetings, similar to tonight. We've held a number of stakeholder meetings over the last several weeks with a number of folks along the corridor just to get their perspective and input regarding the study. And we still have a few more left over the next several days. We do have an interagency meeting coming up, mostly composed of folks within the district agencies, as well as people like CFA, NPS, SHPO, that have a stake in the corridor. And we hope to have some public meetings later this year. Next slide, please. So our community advisory committee is our group really to help fall back on both the technical expertise, providing some outreach, as well as just grounding some of the existing conditions and these alternatives into truth. Essentially, we do have a number of representatives from different ANCs, as you can see here, as well as a pedestrian advisory council member and Ward 3 bicycle advocate. Next slide, please. So essentially, like I said before, we're in the June and July timeframe where we are currently conducting small stakeholder interviews. We're having an interagency meeting tomorrow, actually. And then we still have several milestones of engagement kind of throughout the process, and hoping for a formal public meeting in October later this year with the date, time, and location to be determined. Next slide. We do have a project website and an email. So if you do have any questions regarding any of this content tonight or just about the study, feel free to reach out to us. The website does have a number of materials that you can feel free to browse through. We have a fairly thorough existing conditions report, as well as an environmental inventory summary, which can be found at the end of the website. Next slide, please. So essentially, I'm going to kind of give a really high level overview of some of the existing conditions or the key findings from the existing conditions report. Just as a heads up, we did do a fairly thorough data collection effort that looked at, vehicle operations, multimodal, so pedestrian, bicycle counts, transit, also looking at traffic volumes, observations along the corridor, and some crash analyses data. Like I said before, all of this can be found on the website. What we're going to delve into tonight is just kind of like high-level findings.
Ask a quick question about when this was done because of the change in conditions with the COVID epidemic.
Yeah, so all of these were done prior to COVID. So it was January, February, and February of 2020.
Thank you.
Yep. So as you can see on this map, we did count average daily traffic volumes both in the primary and secondary study area. It kind of gives you a benchmark of what the roadway volumes are adjacent to Connecticut Avenue. For the most part, it's fairly consistent along the corridor, except for south of Macomb Street, there's a little bit of a drop in volumes. Next slide, please. In terms of bicycle data, we did do counts along the corridor. And what we found was that the map at the bottom, technically the numbers show the highest bicycle usage. And so for the most part, the highest use bicycle intersections were really south of Porter. As like Ed said before, Connecticut Avenue was designated a corridor for protected bike lanes. And we did look at that analysis just to see, what is their definition of bicycle level of stress and what that analysis showed. And for the most part, when we overlay what we counted in the field and what the bicycle level of service analysis showed, a lot of the high stress kind of poor condition intersections were actually overlapping with the highest activity locations that we're seeing on this map. So that's just something to consider moving forward as we go through these alternative processes. Next slide, please.
Sorry, quick question. The ranking is from highest to lowest or lowest to highest?
Highest to lowest.
Thank you.
This looks at, we also looked at pedestrians, and we looked at pedestrian crossings along the corridor. For the most part, when we went out in the field and our consultants looked at the existing conditions of the sidewalks, for the most part, the sidewalks are fairly continuous. There are crosswalks that are compliant and streetscape elements that really help to support an environment. However, we have heard from several people just the access and the safety kind of conditions play out a little bit differently, especially if you're trying to cross or you need to, wait out a longer signal. So those are some of the things that we'll be definitely considering moving forward into all our alternative concepts is, what are the larger impacts of pedestrian access and design? And I don't know if Ed stated before, the extent of the study is really just looking at curb to curb. So we wouldn't necessarily be changing sidewalk widths, but we can look at opportunities to be increasing access and safety within the design of the roadway. And like the other map before, these just show, the numbers on this map show kind of the higher pedestrian intersections that have activity. So mostly around commercial activity centers. Next slide, please. We also did look at parking and curbside usage. We know that is something that's fairly important for Connecticut Avenue. So we did off-peak observation count on a typical Thursday from 11 to 12 in the afternoon. And for the most part, we did see that there was fairly high usage around commercial activity centers like Van Ness and Cleveland Park. Kind of outside of these activity centers, the parking was fairly utilized, but not very high. We also did observe some of the loading activities that were happening. And for the most part, a lot of these commercial loading zones were being utilized to the fullest extent. And so that's something we will be looking into a little bit more as we figure out what alternatives and what impacts parking and curbside uses will have based on, you know, if there are bike lanes or if we can change shifts.
Let's see, next, parking safety. Okay, there you go.
So we also did a safety and crash analysis, and some of the key findings that we looked at were, in total, there are around 1,500 police reported crashes during this 5-year study period that we looked at between 2015 and 2019. And around a third of those were pedestrian crashes, as well as a fifth of those bicycle crashes. All of these mostly happened during the reversible lane hours of operation. Next slide, please. One of the major key findings that we did find that, you know, although the reversible lane is really only in effect for a short period of time, a good proportion of crashes happen during these hours, around 44%. And when we do compare the corridor alongside comp corridors or arterials, we found that generally they are higher in comparison to corridors like Mass Ave in Wisconsin, but generally lower than places like Georgia and Rhode Island Avenue. So that's essentially most of the key findings that we've just kind of highlighted for tonight, understanding that we do have a short amount of time. Feel free, like I said before, to read through the existing conditions report. There's definitely more content to be highlighted, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I'll hand it over to Ed.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm going to go over some of the concept alternatives in this next section of the presentation. So before we actually look at the concepts, I put 10 bullet points down here about what we'll look for when we evaluate the concepts. And so you know, we're not done the evaluation. We'll be conducting that evaluation over the next 2 and 2.5 months. But these are some of the things we're going to look at when we evaluate the concepts. One is, do they meet our design standards? Second is the concept inclusive of multimodal elements. Is the concept understandable to the public? Is the concept safe, or how safe is the concept? Are there modal conflicts? Do we have modal priorities? Are we prioritizing one mode over the other in the corridor? And then if we do have conflicts, how can we resolve the conflicts? We'll look at vehicular traffic operations in terms of level of service, queuing, and delay. We're going to look at the design to see if what the effect is in terms of reducing speeds in the corridor. We'll look at parking and loading requirements. And if we don't have parking in a concept, we'll look at to see how we might be able to mitigate that. We'll look at neighborhood traffic impacts in terms of potential diversion. And then one of the goals is to increase the quality of life and sustainability in the corridor. Another piece of evaluation, we'll be looking at emergency vehicle management, and we'll be contacting MPD and fire and emergency management systems to help us look at any impacts to emergency vehicles. So these are the kinds of things we'll be looking at in the next, I'd say, 8 weeks. Okay. Did I hear a comment before I go on, or no?
Ed, did I miss this? Is there anything about environmental impact in terms of reducing emissions? Moving more people onto bikes or
Okay.
foot or.
We'll talk about environmental analysis. I think Cynthia mentioned that we have an environmental inventory in the on our website. So we looked at existing environmental resources. The level of environmental documentation will be decided by DDOT and the Federal Highway Administration once we come up with a preferred alternate. And it can range from a categorical exclusion where we would not do air quality analysis, or it could range to an environmental assessment. So there's different levels of environmental analysis, and the decision about what level of environmental documentation would be made after we have a preferred concept.
But that's a little different than being a criteria. Has there been discussion about one of the criteria should be reducing emissions?
Not at this time.
But if I could, I don't know if Bob, if you're still on here.
Well, I was going to say, can we let him maybe get through the presentation before we get through the questions, please?
Got it.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So this cross section, this lane usage shows the existing conditions as it was pre-COVID. So as you can see, we have 4 lanes inbound in the morning towards Washington, D.C., towards the district. And we have 2 lanes outbound in the morning. The reverse is true in the afternoon peak hour, where we have 4 lanes outbound towards Maryland and 2 lanes inbound towards the District of Columbia. As you can see on the right-hand side of the page, you can see 2 travel lanes in each direction with parking permitted on both sides of the street. As Cynthia said, our constraint is 60 feet. We have 6 10-foot lanes. And so one of the guiding principles of the project is we have to stay within that 60-foot curb-to-curb section. Next slide. Let's see. We'll have a no-build management and operations improvement that we'll look at. One of the elements of this no-build concept would be enhancing the signage and markings, looking at the visibility of the reversible lane signage in the corridor. With regard to signage, we'll look at the position of the signs, the condition, the location, the height, and the content, making sure that it's all in accordance with the manual and uniform traffic control devices. We'll look at signal operations improvements, potential turn restrictions or access management. We'll look at speed management. We'll analyze potential speed limit reductions, the pedestrian improvements, consideration of pedestrian improvements, and looking at additional traffic enforcement, potentially the deployment of automated speed cameras. And some of these items, even though we say they're no build, they can be included in some of the build options. So, next slide. Okay. We have 4 concepts A, B, C, and D. And so as you can see, this first concept retains both reversible lanes. It includes a protected bicycle lane, and there's no off-peak parking permitted. So during the AM peak period, you can see 3 lanes are inbound and 1 lane is outbound in the non-peak direction. And the reverse is true during the afternoon peak period, where 1 lane is inbound and it's towards DC, and 3 lanes are outbound towards Maryland. In the off-peak condition, we maintain 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. Parking is not permitted. We have a protected bicycle lane on the east and west sides of Connecticut Avenue. It's a 6-foot bike lane and a 3-foot buffer. Issues that we will need to address in concept A include parking and loading and bus and bike conflicts. So let me just stop there for a moment so you can take in what this lane usage looks like. And then I'll go on to concept B. So again, this concept A retains both reversible lanes. Concept B. Concept B removes both reversible lanes. There's no protected bicycle lane, and it includes off-peak period parking. So you can see that in the morning and in the evening, we have 3 lanes inbound and 3 lanes outbound towards DC and towards Maryland. And in the off-peak period, as I said, there's 2 travel lanes in each direction with parking permitted on both sides of the street. It's basically the same configuration as we have today, and we'll be looking at, it almost will act as a baseline scenario to test. So this is really a reduction of 1 travel lane in each direction in the peak hours. Okay. Concept C removes both reversible lanes. It includes a protected bicycle lane. There's no off-peak period parking, and we provide for left turn pockets. If we did not provide a left turn pocket, if it wasn't really needed, we could use that as a pedestrian refuge median there. So you can see we have 2, again, the cross section is consistent at all times of the day. We have, again, 2 lanes in each direction. We have a 5-foot bicycle lane, and the buffer is 6 inches to 4 feet. So we have a variable median in this concept. We could accommodate floating bus islands. We have the provision for left turns, and as I stated. I'm going to show you a rendering of concept C. So you can see that there are 2 lanes in each direction with bicycle lanes on each side of the street. You can see we try to accommodate buses and bicycles with, this is called a Zikla, where the bus would stop right at this yellow mark over here, and bicycles would stop and wait for the buses to board and alight at this junction. So let me stop there for a second so you get a feel for this rendering. We will do a sensitivity analysis. I'm going to go back to concept C, and we will look at providing in the off-peak period only 1 travel lane in each direction with parking. So we're going to look at that in terms of the operational impacts of only providing 1 travel lane in the off-peak periods and parking on both sides of the street. Okay. Concept D. Concept D removes 1 reversible lane. There's a 2-way protected bicycle lane on the west side of the street only. Off-peak parking would be allowed on the east side of Connecticut Avenue. So this removes 1 reversible lane. As I said, we have a 2-way protected bicycle lane on the west side. In terms of lane usage, in the morning we have 3 lanes inbound and 2 lanes outbound. And in the PM peak period, we have 2 lanes inbound and 3 lanes outbound. Off-peak parking permitted, as I said, on the east side of the street. If we did not provide parking, the center lane could be used for pedestrian refuge or median. Issues to resolve would include bus bike right turn conflicts and the dimensions of the protected bicycle lane. It's a bit lower than our design standards call for. So in summary, we showed you 4 alternatives. 3 alternatives show a protected bicycle lane. Concept B does not include a protected bicycle lane. 1 alternative retains on-street parking during the off-peak period. That's concept B. In terms of the reversible lanes, 2 alternatives remove the reversible lanes, concepts B and C. 1 alternative removes 1 reversible lane, concept D. Concept A retains both reversible lanes. In terms of travel lanes, 3 of the alternatives carry 3 travel lanes in the peak period, peak direction. a reduction of 1 travel lane as compared to today. And one concept would reduce peak period, peak direction travel by 2 lanes, and that's concept C. And as we stated earlier, concept C has a consistent cross section of 2 lanes inbound and 2 lanes outbound during all times of the day. And we would have the provision of left turn pockets where we need them under concept C. As far as next steps, we're going to continue over the, as I said, over the next 8 weeks, analyzing the alternatives. We're meeting with our Community Advisory Committee and the ANCs and our stakeholders and our agencies to get comments on the concepts themselves and to just to brief everyone on the elements of the concepts. We'll be conducting detailed traffic operations and modeling and safety and multimodal analysis during the next 8 weeks as well. And in the fall, we're planning on having a public workshop. And then we will recommend a preferred concept. We may not recommend a build alternative. It may come down to, if we don't get consensus, we may come down to the no build alternative. So the agency, with your help, will make a go, no go decision on a build alternate. If we decide to go forward, we'll prepare a 10% concept design for the entire corridor, looking at intersections and sections of roadway itself. And then again, if we decide to go forward, we'll go into the NEPA process and prepare environmental documentation between January and June of 2021 next year. This is our contact information. Again, you see my name, Ed Stoloff. You see Cynthia Lynn's name. You see Donise Jackson's name here as well. She's our, as you know, our Ward 3 Community Engagement Specialist. And then Charlotte Duckworth and Ian Swain are our Community Engagement Consultants from Commune ET. And that's the presentation. And Cynthia and I would be happy to answer some of your questions and listen to some of the comments that you have.
Thank you. Very informative. Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I have a few questions, and we're going to then have the commissioners are going to ask.
Should we stop sharing the screen some? Let's see.
You can leave it up because I don't know if anyone
okay.
wants to go back to any slides or something in the question. So let's
okay.
leave it up until we know for a fact. And then I'll open the floor to anyone in the community who's going to possibly have questions. So my first question is, back on slide 6, which we don't necessarily have to go back to slide 6, but you say the study starts Connecticut Avenue, the primary starts at Legation, all the way down to Calvert. And I kind of get why you're starting there, because that's where the reversible lanes start. But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, if you're doing a comprehensive study, why not include that part from Legation up to Chevy Chase Circle? So just curious as to why you're starting there.
Number one, it was scoped this way a couple of years ago, but that doesn't mean we can't look at it now. In our agency meeting tomorrow, I will be bringing that up. At least as far as if there's a bike lane alternative, it was mentioned that perhaps could you extend the protected bike lane up to maybe just south of Chevy Chase Circle. I don't think we want to go to the circle itself because of National Park Service impacts, which would create lots and lots of delays for the project. So if there is a project, so we will be bringing that up to the agencies that we're meeting with tomorrow.
Okay. Is your data collection complete? You had mentioned that you're kind of did data collection in like January, February before COVID. Can you tell us a bit more about your data collection? Like over what period of time was the data collected? How much? I mean, I didn't I don't think any of us knew that you were actually doing data collection at the time. So at least I didn't.
So number one, I encourage you to at least scan and read the sections of the 75-page report that you would like. And then if there's specific questions, we can definitely address those. With regard to the data collection itself, as Cynthia said, a lot of data was collected during January and February of this year. So we have bicycle data, we have pedestrian data. Our traffic volume, our peak hour traffic volumes were collected between 2018 and 2019. So we actually have data for the 25 signalized intersections in the corridor. And then we have over 20 intersections that we have peak hour volumes for and multimodal volumes for in the secondary study area. So we have the traffic volumes, we have the bicycle volumes, pedestrian volumes as well. What else do we have? We did origin and destination analysis, so we kind of know who's staying in the corridor and who's leaving the corridor. What percentage of the people are coming from Maryland, and what percentage of people are staying to the north, within the north? How many people are going, to Washington D.C.? So we have a good idea of who's staying in the corridor and who's leaving in the corridor. Basically, if you live in the corridor, so it's kind of neat, and we can present more of that in a subsequent meeting if you'd like. So we have that information. We did parking surveys in January and February. One of the things that we are going to do now is basically contact the businesses along the corridor to see what their loading requirements are. We think in order for us to be successful, we need to understand, what kinds of businesses need what kinds of loading, how many times a week do they have, what times of the day are they loading, what kinds of trucks. And so we'll be issuing a survey to a lot of businesses in the corridor shortly in the next, say, 3 weeks or so. Did that answer your question in part?
Yes. One follow-on with that, which gets to also with the bike rankings. As part of your data collection, did you measure speed?
We did.
Okay, because one of the concerns that I know, at least anecdotally, and that we certainly have I've heard from bicyclists and also pedestrians, that the closer in you get, it seems the average speed does decrease, whereas Upper Connecticut Avenue at times seems like it's a highway. And I think one of the reasons maybe like bicyclists are less apt to be on Upper Connecticut Avenue is just because there's this perception, at least, whether it's real or not, that it's much more dangerous to be on Connecticut Avenue. I know people were thrilled as start putting bike lanes on Reno. And
one of the conclusions or I wouldn't say conclusions, but it's a finding. We did look at speed from intersection to intersection to intersection. And I think the average speed is between 25 and a little over 30 miles an hour. What our data collection will not get at, because as you can see, it smooths things over. It looks at all of the vehicles traveling at a certain rate and the distance, the time it takes them to get from point A to point B. What this data is not going to show us is if somebody tries to speed up, say, to beat a light, or somebody tries to speed up in certain sections, slow down, but the average that we saw is roughly 25 to 30 miles an hour. We might want to go out to the corridor and just do an observation to see if there's people doing non-compliant driving, as you were saying, to see if people are speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. But the data that we collected, really, it shows that the average speed, and again, that smooths things over, is roughly 25 to 30 miles an hour.
Okay. Thank you. I guess open it up to other commissioners. So
Yeah, I have something, but if others do, then they could go.
I'll just go for it, Andrea.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Andrea, and then I have some afterwards.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking would be loosely under environmental concerns, but I'm thinking very specifically about air quality. So the first question is, was any air quality data collected during this data collection? Do you know where the hotspots are, where cars are idling and polluting things? That's not going to be good for pedestrians and bicyclists to be choking on the air. Also, is that consideration air quality, improving it with fewer cars or less traffic, as well as possibly degrading it because you're going to force the cars to just sit? Is that part of the concept criterion? Are you going to gauge these concepts based on what they will do to that? If not, I would advocate that that be added.
Sure. Again, as I said earlier, the level of environmental documentation, we're going to follow all the regs, but the level of environmental documentation is going to be decided upon later on in this study. And the federal folks will tell us, whether or not we need to, look at air quality or noise or these other kinds of things, other environmental conditions. What I would say is our first step is to figure out, and we're modeling right now. We are modeling the corridor for the various conditions. The model is based upon the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments assumptions for employment and the number of residences and housing in the area. And so that's standard. All the jurisdictions within the COG area use the same model to start with, and then
Does that include air quality modeling?
No, we're modeling traffic volumes at this point, because we have to, before you can even do air quality modeling, you have to know what traffic numbers are available. So what we will be doing is looking at a base condition, a no-build condition. What does the corridor look like in terms of traffic volumes in a no-build condition? And then if we change the cross-section, what does that look like? And we'll be looking at diversion because, as I said in one of the evaluation criteria, we need to know, if we constrict the number of lanes, where's that traffic going to go? Is it going to go through the neighborhoods? Is it going to disappear and go take another arterial, not on Connecticut Avenue? Will people shift modes? Excuse me. And those are the kinds of things that we will look at in what we call our macro simulation modeling. We're doing that right now over the next 8 weeks. Again, when we meet with the federal highway folks, they'll let us know whether or not we should go to the next step and do air quality modeling. We will be modeling congestion. So we'll know if we have more congestion with any of our alternatives than we do today, or if we do in a no-build condition. The modeling is going to look at the year 2045. So it's going to look at 25 years into the future.
Thanks.
Naomi?
Yeah, thanks. So, Ed, is it possible to go back to the criterion slide? I think some of my
Let's try that.
questions are concept evaluation. Yeah, so I mean, following up on Andrea is sort of these criteria or concept evaluation, how were they selected, and are there other ones that can or should be considered? You're hearing a bit tonight about emissions.
Sure, and if you have others, let us know. We'll be looking at the historic and cultural impacts as well. If any of our alternatives are proximate to historic properties, we'll be looking at National Park Service impacts. The National Park Service will be at our meeting tomorrow, and we'll hear from them as to what they think we might be looking at. in terms of impacts or no impacts. I think I said we'll be looking at emergency management, so police and fire and ambulances to see, you know, what their requirements might be. And if there's others, please, if there are other criteria that you would like us to look at, please let me know.
Emissions and air quality. I think you're hearing that from us tonight.
Okay.
Is another one we'd like you to look at. And then my other question is related to the methodology for these criteria. You mentioned modeling, there's consultation, but I'm trying to understand sort of what is the methodology for evaluating these criteria? How is quantitative data being used? How's qualitative data being used? I really appreciate and applaud your community consultation, but I also think we need more than besides what people think and observe and believe.
Right.
So
Well,
it would be great. You don't have to answer that tonight because it's
no, but we are,
great to
as
understand.
As I
the
said,
methodology.
we are doing modeling and macro simulation. It's a lot of technical stuff, but we are doing modeling, and so we'll be looking at the traffic volumes under various conditions, and then we'll be looking at sensitivity analysis, basically looking at traffic volumes. We then really look at the models are not good at predicting pedestrians. The models cannot predict bicycles. Actually, we have one of our tasks, and I have it almost done, is we actually did a bicycle forecast for Connecticut Avenue to say how would the number of bicyclists change on Connecticut Avenue if we put in a protected bicycle lane. And so we have some numbers that we'll share in future meetings. So that's one thing. We have the quantitative piece under the design standards. We have our DEM, our environmental, our engineering manual, that we have design standards, and we have to see if we can meet them, and if we don't need exceptions, or if we do need exceptions, you know, to what extent do we need an exception for the corridor? Number 3 is really qualitative. Is an alternative understandable to pedestrians? Is it understandable to bicyclists? Is it understandable to vehicles so that vehicles know which lane to be in? We did find, interestingly enough, we did find that, and we counted the number of cars in each lane. And on the outside lanes, there were, you know, where the left turns were, there were much fewer vehicles, you know, in some of the lanes versus other lanes. And what that tells us is that we're really not, although we might have 4 lanes going into Washington in the morning, we really don't have effectively 4 lanes. It might be 3, it might be 2.5, but the way people are using the lanes, it's effectively not 4 lanes.
That's because of left turns?
Yeah, left turns, people backing up between, yeah, at left turns, etc. So, yeah.
And just the last point I wanted to just bring up, I'm sure you're looking at some of the safety, but there's a lot of pretty dangerous intersections across Connecticut. So it's not necessarily is Connecticut Avenue safe or not, but is it crossing at Fessenden, for example, if you're a pedestrian or a vehicle or a school child at Davenport on your way to Murch Elementary, down to the Albemarle where people are coming in from a variety of directions and working their way down Connecticut. So just how also these designs affect the crossing of Connecticut at these many intersections.
Sure, and we'll look at, right now we're scoped. Our scope really is calling for us to look at the signalized intersections, actually starting at Military, going down to Calvert. But I know there's been many studies in the past, the Kappa study and George Brannion's study that looked at some of the unsignalized intersections.
And actually, all the ones I mentioned to you are signalized, so.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
And still are dangerous.
Yeah. We'll be recommending signal timing improvements.
But also, when you talked about some of these alternatives for how you would make turns, and the issues of vehicles turning bikes, buses, and then you've got people
Yeah.
coming, pedestrians coming across.
Yeah, for example, in concept D, if I go back to D, let's see, no, D,
Wrong way.
a little bit more, huh?
No, wrong way.
No,
There
he's
we go,
not.
D, here we go. In concept D, as you can see, if we, is this D? Yeah, okay. We might have to protect, protect turns in certain circumstances. So if I
Yeah.
look at this, and again, we would look at, instead of permissive turns, we might have to look at protecting certain left turn movements.
Or just when you look at
And
D, again, if you're a pedestrian going across or a child going to school, you've got 2 lanes of bike traffic and you've got 2 lanes of vehicle traffic, and that's changing from morning to evening. It's a lot.
Right. And so, if I look at the criteria, I would say, is that understandable to the pedestrian? Is that understandable
And
to
remember,
the
some of these
driver?
pedestrians are school children on
Yeah,
their way
exactly.
from Rich Elementary
Yeah.
and Hertz Elementary and other places, and Wilson.
Cynthia, do you have any comments on the turning movements, the left turns?
I mean, for this concept, I think, so as part of just the guidance that we've been using when we implement protected bike lanes specific to the cyclists and at least we do follow MassDOT guidelines in terms of providing either a protected left turn that is not permissive, that would need to have a specific light, and or a bicycle signal at specific locations, depending if it's a 2-way cycle track on one side or if it's 1-way protected in each direction. There is a threshold for the number of turning vehicles that often triggers that to happen. So that's something that we'll look at. But I think for now, just because these are concepts, those are considerations that would need to be figured out kind of on a later date, but those are obviously things that we are cognizant of.
Thanks, and thanks very much. And thanks very much for this comprehensive presentation. It's really great to see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
David?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So as I think one of the slides showed, I and actually Bob Daling, who's the chair of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, are on the Community Advisory Committee. So we've seen this before, and I would, again, I really appreciate Ed and the team's work. I think, had you seen the earlier version of this about a month ago, we had a lot more questions. And so I want to kind of give compliment to the team in terms of making this a more richer presentation and more information, and even focusing on this page that's on the screen right now. This is certainly something that wasn't there a month ago. So, I mean, I know there's lots of questions around this, but I think this, it seems like this is coming together rather well. And I guess I would add one. I don't really have a lot of questions, but I think that, there's a rendering in number C, and I think if you could do that rendering for each of the 4 options, and that's, again, something that, so we're sort of, I mean, I know the alternatives are not apples to apples to apples, but at least in terms of how you see them or how the public, how we see them, I think that would help. And I think another point that Commissioner Ruttenberg raises, these concept evaluations, and also adding what Andrea suggested is, this notion of air quality. But I think if you can take this concept list and sort of compare each of these 4 alternatives to this list, I mean, I know it's kind of complicated, but I think this would, this is a good way of looking at these alternatives in advance of starting to get to a place where, say, some of us like me as a bike advocate may want to go, because I stick my neck out, sort of going from a question to a, what's this normative thing we're looking at? I know those of you on the commission who, the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, we had a resolution that came before the ANC, and it really is about looking at this this Connecticut Avenue corridor as a multimodal corridor that focuses on how do we get if it's not safe on the sidewalks because you got scooters and bikes on the sidewalks, well, let's get them into the road. We can't get them in the road unless they feel safe, and them feeling safe is having some in one of these, hopefully what we get to is got to be a protected bike lane or bike, scooter, fast pedestrian. That, I think that, I mean, and this is, I'm kind of putting not a firm stake in the ground, but I think a protected bikeway, scooterway, I think that has to be one of the alternatives going forward. And so I think that's, again, I think that's, I don't know that, you know, so that's just kind of my opinion based on, you know, my experience as living on Connecticut Avenue as a cyclist that goes to work, as a cyclist that, you know, rides recreationally, but also as a walker on Connecticut Avenue going down to Cleveland Park, you know, having to, you know, bicycles dodge me, I dodge bicycles and scooters. And so I know that's I think that's you know, there may not be data around that, but I think you're going to get a lot of feedback around, you know, let's make the sidewalks for pedestrians and let's get everything else onto like a protected bike lane. I think the other point you made, it's really good talking to the business people, because again, this, you know, if one of these options has 2 bike lanes and they're both on, you know, on these outside lanes, and what do you do about loading? What do you do about parking? And so I think at some point, you know, we're going to have to, you know, there's going to be some trade-offs about these options. And so again, I think the overall conversation is, I think this is, again as seeing this from sort of 2 months earlier, I think this presentation and information you're providing is really has gotten better. So thanks for that.
David, one comment is that at the end of our evaluation, we'll, just as you said, we will have a matrix and try to line the concept A, B, C, and D up so you can kind of see the criteria and then the concepts and how we either achieve or we don't achieve some of the standards that we would like to have. And as you said, it'll be a trade-off. So we'll try to put these trade-offs in a matrix for everyone to see as easily as we can.
And I have one question. I think early on, I was under the impression that there really wasn't there wasn't much of a budget if we wanted to make some physical improvements in whatever we come up with. And it sounds like that's really not the case, that if through this community process, we come up with a really wonderful design that moves traffic, that doesn't create pollution, that gets cyclists and scooters and people onto a protected space, you know, if there's money needed to make that space, you know, in terms of including physical barriers from the traffic, you know, raised spots where buses are going to, it sounds like that's a possibility. Is that correct?
Well, in this current environment, money's very tight, as you know. And so we are trying to, as I say, stay within the curb to curb width and trying to make a project that ultimately we'll look at the cost of each of the alternatives and array that and look at the differences. And the project is not funded for design right now, so we may need your help in if we decide to have a go on one of the build concepts. We'll need to look at design monies for you know subsequent years.
I think it's, you know,
okay. So
can I have one more comment and then I'll stop?
okay.
I'll make it short. You know, this, as the data shows, this is really the main way in and out of DC. And so if this is such a special corridor, it seems like it warrants, if there's a really good design that's going to cost some money, this is probably a place that's worth an expenditure. That.
And we'll talk about that implementation, you know, at the end of the process, weighing the costs, weighing the benefits, and hearing what the community wants or doesn't want.
Thank you. Leah, any questions?
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. No, I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, then let's quickly get to the community, because I know there certainly has been a lot of stuff in the chat, the text chat. So figure out the best way to do this. Raise hands. Yeah, I think raising your hands, and I'll just call. So Max Smith, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. I live in Miss Malode's SMD on Connecticut between Chesapeake and Cumberland. I guess initially concept C obviously appears to be the most promising to me as someone who walks out our door and faces speeding cars. But my question was, say you did move forward with identifying one of these preferred alternatives, you did get development funding, you got all the way through there. On Wisconsin Avenue in Glover Park a couple of years ago, there was a similar kind of big process and setup, and things got set up, and it seemed things got a lot better, and then suddenly that, I forget what a turn lane or whatever it was called, was taken away. So is there a DDOT commitment to basically not waste all of this effort and to make sure everything that gets done to improve safety, whether it's the short-term stuff like pedestrian bulb outs or speed cameras or something, or it's a longer-term construction, that actually remains in place and lasts long-term and has time to build on that kind of Vision Zero kind of mindset?
Yeah. Well, what we will do is go to our senior management. We'll go to our chief project delivery officer. We'll go to our director when we come to a point in the study in late fall and lay everything out for our senior management. And then, and I'm sure the community will weigh in as well. And that will, I would say, help the implementation as we go on, because we present at a staff level to our management, and then we then prioritize. This is a federal project or a federal aid highway, and so we would prioritize that in our call for projects and prioritize that within local funding as well, potentially. Maybe there's a combination that can be used, but we'll get the direction from our senior management in late fall.
And my only other question was on the buffers for the bike lanes. Does that factor in how fast the cars are going? Not how fast the speed limit is, but because even in a protected bike lane, it doesn't feel safe if the car next to you is going, like you said before, 40, 50 miles an hour between intersections. So is that factored into the plan?
Well, one of the things we're going to have is a physical barrier. I don't know if you saw that on Concept C. Maybe hard to see.
Is it bollards, or is it a zebra, or is it are we at that stage where you would know what the barrier was at this point?
Not at all. This is just illustrative at this point. When we get down to a design, an actual 30% to 65% design, that's when we start looking at materials. So this is illustrative at this point.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I know there was, let's see, any other hands raised? Because I know there's a bunch of questions in the chat room. So I don't know if people had put questions in the text room. If you want to ask questions, Phil Wagner, I know you had some questions. I don't know if you wanted to raise any of them. Eileen McCarthy. I see Phil saying, sure, go right ahead. I think you are unmuted. Let me make sure.
Okay, I think I can talk now.
Yeah.
No, so I'm reviewing all of the data and the papers that are on the DDOT website, and basically my questions would be: it looks like we're aiming towards a solution rather than looking at what the data is giving us, and I'm trying to get a definition of the data sets here, and there's just not a lot on the DDOT website as far as actually when the data was collected, how long a period it was collected over. And it just makes me wonder, how long has this project been going on? It looks like it's been going on for quite a while. How are we where we are with as little data as we have? And why aren't we using the data to drive towards solutions rather than saying that we need protected bike lanes, therefore we're going to shape this to look like something.
I would say that this is a data-driven study.
Where is the data?
We have reams and reams of I would say, assumptions and data, and we can provide that to you. Like I say, the report is about 75 pages, but there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data behind the existing conditions report as well. So it's for our technical folks, and it's open for people to see. I think you're right about in the report itself, they may not have, or we may not have provided the dates the data were collected. Cynthia, I thought we did, but we can check that for you. But definitely the data was collected not just in January and February. That was a lot of ADTs. We did video data collection in January and February, and looked at compliance data as well in terms of people encroaching on the reversible lanes. So there's lots and lots of data, and we'd be happy to at least talk to you offline and show you what we have and tell you what we have and see what you might like to look at.
I think that you've answered the question there. If these reports somewhere, and again, I'm looking at the DDOT website, if these reports included a definition of the data set and then went over the data that was collected, I think it would answer a lot of questions. But right now, to answer the questions that people are saying by saying that there's a lot of technicalities behind it,
yeah,
just makes it sound like perhaps there wasn't a lot of data collected.
Yeah, there was a lot of data collected. So, you know, if we would like to have a conversation about what you'd like to see on the website and what, because we didn't put everything on the website. We have 1,000 pages of traffic numbers. So we didn't put that on the website, but it's available. We're very transparent. Anybody that wants to see our data, you're welcome to see it. So be glad to talk to you offline.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. You know, it was a great conversation. I don't think we have any more questions. So, Ed, thank you, and to the rest of the team. I mean, this was very thorough. Actually, we got a lot more information tonight than I was expecting. So thank you.
This was great. Thank you so much, guys.
And
Yeah,
if you
thank you.
if you have questions in the next couple, 2-3 weeks, whatever, as you start to go through what's on the website and the reports and even your own thoughts about how we might proceed, please let Cynthia and I know, and we'll be glad to follow up.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, DOT colleagues. Really appreciate it.
All right. Enjoy your evening. I'm going to see if I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I see an end button. So I think
Perfect.
have a nice evening, everyone.
Thanks
Great.
again.
Thank you.
Bye.
He's about to end the meeting for everyone. You don't want him to do that.
No, don't end. Yeah, don't end
He
the
has to
meeting.
pass the host back
You're
to
not
you.
the host.
He has to
Okay, just
go to the participants
make me
list
the
and
host.
pass the host back.
Yeah, make me the host again, because I made you the host in order to share.
All right, so I'm going to try to leave the meeting.
No.
No.
The host.
No, go to the participants panel. Go to the participants panel. It should be on the bottom. It should be next to your chat thing on the bottom.
Yeah, it is not.
It could be on your right, on the side of your screen or something. But you have to,
Only as participants, and then you can bring up the list of participants.
and then you would
Okay.
right click on Monica and say make host.
I see the word end.
Nope.
No,
that's not it.
If you share your screen again, we could walk you through it. If you just share your main screen, we could find it for you.
Okay.
So if you click back into Zoom on the bottom there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not seeing that. Oh, did you share only the presentation, or did you share your whole screen?
I think he shared just the presentation.
Stop share. Oh, let's see, more. Here's a more. Participants. Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
And then if you right-click on Monica and make her the host, you should.
Right, click on Monica and make her the host. Let's see. Make host. Got it?
And then
You
stop
wanna
your
change-
sharing.
Yes.
There you go.
Now you can leave.
Okay. I might just turn my computer off because I don't see the leave button down here.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks.
He's still sharing.
He's gone. I think.
There we go.
Yep. Okay. Thank you so very much for the help.
Anytime.
Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is
Liquor license.
yeah, liquor license for Squash Club.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Justin. I know you were requesting a stipulated liquor license for the Squash Club. So why don't you guys tell us briefly about Squash Club?
Yeah, so it's basically a online retail store that we basically just sell it's all wine, but it's kind of like has a focus on biodynamically farmed and more sustainable wines. That's kind of the focus. It'll all be kind of done through the internet, and my storage facility is at 4221 Connecticut Avenue, up near you guys. I actually live in like kind of Kingman Park area, so that's kind of going to be like my home base as far as I'll kind of receive the orders through the internet, go pick them up from there, and then kind of just deliver them all around DC.
Great. And so requested a stipulated license, and I sent you the settlement agreement, which you promptly returned and signed. I sent it to my fellow commissioners, so you should all have a copy of the settlement agreement. So I have no questions. Questions from commissioners?
I have no questions.
Okay, well then, I move that we accept the settlement agreement, which is our standard template for internet business. So I move that we accept the settlement agreement as executed, and that we authorize. Sure if authorize is the right request, but that we support request for stipulated license for Squash Club.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. So Justin, I have the settlement agreement already, so I will get a letter drafted quickly, and we'll get that over to Abra, and there you have it.
Welcome, Justin. Good luck with the business.
Yes, good luck.
Thank you all very much. I really
I
appreciate
gotta
it.
ask you the name. I mean, like Squash Club. I was thinking like tennis club, and it's like, so is this like mashing like grapes with your feet kind of idea?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
They're supposed to be like the only thing in the wine is grapes, so squash them, fermenting the grapes, and you got wine.
Love it.
Thank you. And
Great.
if any of you guys want to buy any wine, the website is squashclubdc.com.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll remember that.
As it looks like Philip just went to get himself a refill of some wine.
There we go.
Cheers. Great. Thanks. And then, so the next item on the agenda. from Andrea, actually. You have proposed an ANC code of conduct. So Commissioner Mullen, take it away.
Yeah, so I would like to propose that we formally adapt a code of conduct. I don't think it goes into the bylaws. I think it's separate from the bylaws, but it is formally adapted. We post it on the website, and it governs behavior in all meetings and among interactions with commissioners, but all the meetings of the committees, and public meetings that ANC 3F holds. And so I'm going to read into the record what the text of such a code of conduct would be. 1, all participants are treated with respect and consideration, valuing a diversity of views and opinions. 2, be considerate, respectful, and collaborative. 3, communicate openly with respect for others, critiquing ideas rather than individuals. And next, avoid personal attacks directed towards other participants. The code of conduct would specifically prohibit harassment, bullying, intimidation, or discrimination in any form. It would prohibit physical or verbal abuse of any participant, and it would prohibit disruption of the proceedings. Commissioner Christille brought up the fact that there's no explicit mention in here of what the consequences are for somebody that violates the code of conduct. I would propose in response to that, if you would like, we could add something to the end of this that says it's at the discretion of whoever is leading that meeting to give warnings and then eventually ask someone to leave if necessary.
Andrea, just to clarify, so this is a code of conduct that all participants in an ANC meeting would implicitly agree to by participating in an ANC meeting.
Yes.
It's not just the commissioners, it's the...
Correct. Everybody that participates in a meeting that is ANC led. Committee meetings, community meetings, ANC meetings.
So we would reference this on any meeting agenda and saying, please refer to the code of conduct, you know, when you join our meeting.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think we would have to, just so everyone knows, understands that there is, and we'd have to make sure the code of conduct is absolutely featured prominently on the website.
Yep. Yep, and then put a link to it maybe in the agenda of any meeting that any of us hold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments? David.
I guess so. If it works for us, I guess for those of you that are in the audience, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask the community, so let's go ahead and open it up. Community, any questions?
There has not been an issue. That just came up in the chat. Some meetings have gotten warm, but we haven't had issues.
This is to make some things explicit that need to be made explicit just in general in society. And the awareness, the Black Lives Matter movement and other stuff, the Me Too and all of it, is making it aware that some of these things need to be formalized. And that was my motivation for suggesting this.
Will there be warnings? I guess if something is triggered in a meeting and someone is warned, I guess that would have to be reflected in the meeting minutes itself. So I think we would have to address that.
I just had a question about basically is this reviewed by somebody to make sure it's open meetings law compliant?
Say that again?
I mean, I understand the spirit of this, but in my current work, we have to worry about open meetings law issues. So I was just asking if it had been reviewed by, I don't know who ANCs have on to refer something like this to, but someone to make sure that this is compliant with ANC. Yeah, with open meetings, whatever.
That's a good point. We have not. Maybe we need to run it past OANC first, just to.
our general counsel on this one?
Well, we would run it past the office of ANC. And
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of, when I saw the draft, it is this, and I don't, again, this notion of legislating meetings, but again, I think, I'll just use myself as, I've been in meetings where, you've been personally attacked. And so at what point do you say, the easy thing is just to try and address it right at the moment. But again, I'll defer to Andrea in terms of, what's the genesis of this? If there's anything beyond what you said.
I would say it would be the chair who gives warnings, just in answer to the chat itself. I would say whoever is leading the meeting would be the person it would be incumbent upon them to just say, sorry, but you're over the line and we have to warn you. And if you keep this up, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
And with virtual meetings, you can mute someone, so that's fun.
Yeah.
That might be the warning, the consequence.
Can I propose that we adapt this and run it past the office of the ANC and then sort of rescind it or not post it if they have an issue with it? Contingent
We
on
have Andrea, there's a nice comment here from Mr. or Ms. Whitesell that says a proactive approach and posting expectation is good. I would think posting or sharing a draft for comments would be good too. Maybe we should put it up on our website for a month for comments and see what, and also we check with the office in the meantime, and then we can vote on the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we can have this on, that works. We'll have our, it'll actually end up being up there for 2 months because we don't meet in August. So this way
we can try to put a headline or something that people who come to the website might notice. Click here, look at code of conduct, leave us your comments on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we'll circulate it to the office of ANC as well, get their input, get public's input, and
okay. So
comment.
I'm going to table this until September.
Yeah, we can provisionally adopt this, or we can say, I don't know if you want to say anything with an intent right now to go forward, or just simply just.
Why don't we put it up for comment with a plan to vote on it in September?
Yep, let's table the vote till September. I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. or Ms. Whitesell, for that excellent suggestion.
Great. And then next order of business is the financial report for the Q3 FY.
Yes, so the finances have been quiet, but a little bit out of whack. Just for those of you who are left in the meeting, all of our checks, all of our payments, any expenses we had them paid by, must be paid by check, and we need 2 signatures. In a time of COVID, there have been substantial delays sometimes in getting 2 signatures on checks. So for the last quarter, we opened our balance with $78,607.61. We received $9.57 in interest and $1.16 in other. Rachel, if you're on the line, you might tell me what the other is.
Yeah, the other was a correction from the OANC office for interest that was missed in 2018. So she put it in other, even though I think it should be an interest, but they are the ones creating the document. So.
Okay, so our receipts for the quarter were $10.73. Our disbursements were $1,007.57. They were all in our personnel line item, which is Rachel Worsham, who supports the ANC in a number of ways. And that includes wages and taxes. And that leaves us with an ending balance of $77,610.77. So we are overdue some payments from the city. We're still trying to clarify a couple things on some past quarterly reports. And also a bunch of checks were written, signed, and sent out around July, very early July, even though they were to expenses that occurred in that quarter, but they will be registered on the next quarterly report. And Rachel, again, where are we with the clearing those last reports so we can get our payments that are outstanding?
I think the one or two that we had issues on are a grant issue that she had asked about. That's the one from 2019.
Okay, so we're still gathering or have submitted and waiting for them to review some documentation around
Right,
grants.
we've given them everything we have on that stuff, right?
Yeah, and they keep asking for more, so I don't.
They didn't spend the money yet. You know, there's nothing more that we can tell them other than that they didn't spend the money yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Okay.
So our balance at the moment, at the end of the quarter, is $77,610.77. So obviously healthy.
So do we have any further questions from commissioners?
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the quarterly report.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, and then, oops.
Abstentions? Thank you.
All right, and so I'm not in the city right now, so this needs to be signed by myself and the secretary. So,
But that can be done just through email and scan, and so if you sign and scan it, then.
So if I send it to you, Andrea, you can sign and scan. Okay. Thank you.
It also has to be signed by Monica too.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Sorry, the formatting was a little funky, so I missed that.
Yep.
The secretary certification is the secretary of the ANC, right? Not the some other secretary. So we need 3 signatures on this.
Correct.
Yes, because you have to certify that we voted and approved it.
Yep.
Some of this was not made for the age of COVID.
Naomi, are you looking at the chat?
Got it. That's helpful. Okay.
Okay.
That's all on the quarterly report.
Great. Other business?
Hey, Monica, on other business, I just want to point out that I noticed Tracy had posted the people who picked up petitions for ANC seats, and I think there are only candidates in 3 of the 7, and the deadline for picking up petitions is the 25th.
Well, no, that's when they opened up to pick up the petitions. Deadline is August 5th, so.
Wait, how can the opening to pick up petitions be the 25th if people have already picked them up?
No. They opened
I
up.
thought the deadline for collecting a petition was July 25th.
No, August 5.
August 5th.
All right.
They opened the process on June 25.
Okay, that's what I'm confusing. Okay, so until August 5th to find some people for 4 more seats. We have 4 districts where nobody yet has collected a petition.
Correct.
Which is a little worrisome.
And in one of them I noticed, because I looked at the list this afternoon.
It's 2, 4, 5, and 6. Nobody has collected petitions yet.
There's also the person who collected in one of the SMDs, I think it was 03.
Yes. Doesn't live in 03? It says Northeast. That can't be right, right?
Has an address has a 2008 zip code, but has an address that's not.
Northeast, that must be a typo. It must be Northwest. Chesterfield Place Northwest.
So just made me kind of go, let's
Yeah,
verify.
I would have guessed that's a typo because Chesterfield Place there is Chesterfield Place in the
Northwest.
03. Yeah.
Okay.
Do we know that 2 is going to be empty?
I don't know for a fact. I have not.
Is that Carolyn?
Yeah.
Well, she hasn't picked up a petition. So.
Okay.
And
so if anybody's still left in the meeting, thank you so much. If you know anyone who's in SMD 2, 4, 5, or 6, or you yourself are.
Well, 6, that's me, so hold on.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're right. Sorry. There's a blank line for 6. I take that back. So it's 2, 4, and 5. Okay, that's a little better. There's only 3 with nobody in them.
So,
I know of people running for 5, so I don't think it's going to be empty. I know of 2 actually, and maybe a third.
Okay,
But they
nudge them
haven't
to get their petitions.
but they have not actually filed the declarations yet and picked up petitions, which is worrisome because like I haven't filed my petitions. So I still have to complete the process of collecting signatures.
But this is a list of people who's at least picked up petitions, right?
Exactly. But so those 3 people, and I know at least one of the people that you are thinking, Andrea, and that's Ryan, who he says he's running, but he hasn't.
Okay, I don't think we have to get into individual cases, but just encourage people if you know they're interested that this is the time for them to collect their petition to start the paperwork.
Yes.
Someone's done it for 3?
Someone has done it for 3, but I think the typo in there. I'm assuming that's just a typo that they typed Northeast instead of Northwest.
Good.
So.
Yeah, so it's 2, 4, and 5. If there's nobody.
Yeah. So. Reach to all your friends and neighbors. It would be lovely to have a full commission next term because it's tough having vacancies. It really is. It really is. So, any other business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second. Have a great night, everyone. See you all in September. Have a great rest of the summer. And
just Monica or Andrea, I am out of town. There are checks. I'll be back in the end of July. Are one of you around to sign some checks then?
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll reach out to one of both of you
Yeah.
to get whatever signatures we need. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for sticking in there.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Monica. Bye, everybody. Thank you.